there. Welcome to the Funtaqa Junction podcast. Real talk. It is I, your humble host, LA, and joining me is my steady, strong and chested one, the usual regular suspect, Resh. And today on the studio, we have a friend of the house. You know her, you love her. We are always pleased to have her. It's lovely and I like her. Guys, what's going on? How you guys doing?
Hi.
Analyca is back.
Yes, I am.
Back in the building, back for another one.
Yeah. I mean, the last session that Anna had, I got a lot of feedback. I think that's the one that I got most feedback from in a while. Yeah, it's a lot of feedback.
Yeah, feedback is why we are here. And today on the junction, we have some very interesting treats for y'all. The last time we had a movie review on Lisha B, and you guys loved it, really. And I thought to myself, maybe this is one of the good treats that we can give our lovely listeners. So today, we are doing another Nollywood blockbuster movie review. And this time, we're talking about the movie Hijack 93. Yes, Hijack 93. A blockbuster movie that just came out October 25th, showing on Netflix right now. On the junction, we're just going to give our honest review and thoughts about the movie. And maybe at the end of this show, you will know whether it's worth watching or probably you want to skip this one. Just a bit of an overview. Hijack 93 is a movie about 4 young Nigerians who decided to hijack a Nigerian Airways flight as a means of protest against the military government way back in 1993 following the annulment of the June 12 elections. The movie was directed by Robert Peters. It's a Netflix production, and essentially it's supposed to be a true life story. So, guys, I know we've watched the movie, so just 10 seconds. What are your opinion or your feelings after seeing the movie? Resh.
It was impressive. I think for a Nigerian movie and for their effort, it was impressive. I think that's what I would.
Impressive.
Yeah.
And I like her.
It is impressive, rather.
I would say it was fair. It didn't reach my expectations, so.
Was fair. Didn't reach expectations. All right, good. So, in rating this movie, we're going to go through our usual categories. We're going to rating based on story writing, dialogue, cinematography, special effects, and overall acting. So we're going to start with story writing. Resh, if you were to rate this movie over 10, what's your scores for story writing?
Story writing, I'll give it 6.
6 over 10.
Yeah, 6 over 10. Yeah, because it's fiction now, Shibi. They took it away from the real event. It's fiction, so 6 over 10.
Okay. I like her.
I'll give it a 4 out of 10. And that's because there was a lot of flashbacks. There was a lot of cuttings that took away from the sequence of the movie. It was, there were a lot of Hollywood cliches in it. It just gave me the ick. So, unfortunately for me, too many flashbacks. There were so many characters that were not necessarily built properly. They were just trying to jumble a lot of things in. I felt like there was the plot and then there were several subplots that weren't necessarily connected properly. There's some characters that were just brought in out of nowhere and you're like, there wasn't any, the characters weren't built in necessarily and you just lose me.
Yeah.
So it was just too jumbled in. It felt like they had somewhat like, will I say a write-up, and then they were like, oh, let me cut this in. I think there's an idea. This is a good idea. I've seen this Hollywood film. It had this scene in it. Let me cut this in. Let me put this in, and just jumbled it together. And it wasn't necessarily connecting. It's like an essay without linking words. So I wasn't a fan.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with you. I think I'll give it a 4 over 10 too. And largely because, and don't get me wrong, good effort, right? And like you said, I see them try to do a bit of Hollywood shenanigans in it, try to, link some real life stories to the characters and all that, help us to make us feel connected. But it didn't quite work out. And I think the main thing I think they missed for me is, if I didn't already know that the movie was about the hijackers who were trying to protest against the military government to reinstate the June 12th election, I would not have gotten that picture watching the movie, right? That was the major thing for me. And someone who's neutral, that doesn't know the background, will watch that movie and be wondering, okay, why did this guy decide to hijack a plane in the first place? Yeah, I get it. They're upset with the government, but the story wasn't rich enough for the audience to really understand why the movie was happening in the first place.
Yeah.
Let me give context. It was actually an interim government where Ernest Shoneko. I think, it was an interim government that was operating then before Abacha took over from him. It was during the interim government that the plane was hijacked, actually. So I just thought to correct that. But it was still military that was controlling everything. They gave it to the interim government. The interim government was supposed to transit.
Was it Abacha or Ibrahim Babangida?
It was Ibrahim Babangida. Then we had... is he? No, it was actually it was interim government, Sha.
Yeah.
Can't even get...
All right. Let's go on to dialogue. Where is in dialogue? How do you see the dialogue of the movie?
Yeah, the first one that I answered, I didn't know that we were supposed to give context. I thought you just said we should give mark. Okay, so the dialogue I'm going to give 6 as well. I'm going to give 6 as well because, piggybacking on what Anna said, they were trying to mimic Hollywood and all. And the part that was interesting was where they two of them, they went into the restroom and they were holding their head, as if they were like, what am I doing? No. Like, this is typical Hollywood. This is typical Hollywood really.
Adaptation.
Yeah. But they tried, really. They tried.
All right.
I think 6 is good for me.
Dialogue?
I'll give it a 5. I think I'll give it a 3.
It's 3.
Yeah.
Damn.
There were so many awkward pauses in the movie. It was like there was weird silence. It wasn't natural. There were some conversations that, they were trying to, like, the subtext itself wasn't conveyed properly. And I'm just trying my best not to, like, put in spoilers and all, but, like,
you don't
we
put
have
spoilers.
instances.
3.
No spoilers, like not talking about what actually happened in the movie.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I'm saying. So in instances where you're having, let's say, someone insinuating something, the conversation is not there and the subtext wasn't actually portrayed properly. So when they come up to the final conclusion, you're like, I'm sorry, you didn't build the dialogue enough for me to actually get to this conclusion. Right? I'm trying my best, like, because I would have loved to, like, give certain scenarios. And there were some instances where it also falls back to the script writing where conversations are very unnatural. Right? You're trying to portray someone in distress, right? And all of a sudden, they are calm. Everyone is calm on the plane, and then all of a sudden, everyone is scared. It's like, why are you guys sleeping? This is not natural to, will I say, Nigerians typically that are in distress. So there was a lot of jittering in some instances. Maybe this particular character is talking, and how would I put it? Say someone, for instance, maybe a lady that gave birth on the plane, she's in distress, and all of a sudden, because you want to build in some sort of dialogue, you're like, this person is the one talking about your child giving birth, your child loss, and she's attentive to you. Like, it's not natural. It's just not natural. It's not something typical Nigerians would say. There are some nuances that are not native to Nigerians. They are rather Hollywood cliches, and there were lots in the film. And the worst I hated was them not finding native Yoruba speakers, especially when you were trying to put in, like, a few Yoruba dialogues in there, and it was like, this person doesn't speak Yoruba enough. Why is the intonation wrong? Right? You're in Nigeria. The film was produced in Nigeria. It can't be that hard to get a native Nigerian or a native Nigerian actor. So, I mean, a native Yoruba speaking actor. So that itself sometimes put me off.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. I think that with dialogue, I'll probably give it a 4, but then Wasn't very impressed too, to be honest. And for points that's already been reason, I think our writers are becoming a bit too lazy, right? Getting people who don't necessarily have the ability to convey certain languages, and then having them speak those languages in movies, right? Some guys that they got to speak Yoruba didn't do it well. Some guys they got to speak Igbo weren't doing well. And I feel like it was lazy writing, right? And lazy effort from the actors as well. Also, like she said, I wasn't getting the vibe. The dialogue was not natural, right? A lot of things were looking very artificial. And then the conversations were too disjointed rather. It wasn't flowing, right? So yeah, it was a poor start a lot, and didn't quite carry me along. All right, moving on very quickly because we're out of time. Let's talk about the cinematography. What would you grade cinematography for this movie?
I'll give the cinematography, I'll give it 7.
Resh, like you're really impressed in this film.
Yeah, I'll give it 7. I'll give it 7 because they were able to achieve the plane setting.
Yeah.
They were able to achieve the plane flying. I'm actually impressed, and because I'm part of Nollywood, though not very active like that, and I know what it takes for people to execute a film project and all, and what those guys did. I was very, very impressed, especially them getting the aesthetics of the plane flying, and then I don't know if it was animated or whatever, or maybe they went into obviously they went into a real airport and all, but I'm talking of the plane. How did they paint it? Did they change the color of the plane and all? So I give them credit, because they, looking at the Nigerian system that is short of funds and stuff, they really try. They try. Right. So I'm gonna give it to them.
Okay,
give it to them. 7.
Well, I'll give them a 5. Okay. And the reason why I give them a 5 is more towards the color palette. I did like it. It fit the theme of the movie. The grading of the colors in the film was nice, but I had a problem with the camera movement. There were a lot of camera jittering. There were areas where the camera angles were just unnecessary. You pan into this view, and then the next thing there's a drone shot that just swiped into this and that, and there's instability. It's kind of like affects, like the eye movement is just weird, and it still boils down to the way I felt like it was a lot of cut and join, and it was like they were trying to, you've watched a lot of Hollywood action films, right? Yeah. And they're trying to, mimic that type of scenario. And aside from the colors, the movements were not good. The angles were not good for me. So yeah, it's a 5.
5. Cinematography, I will give them maybe a 6. Maybe a 6 because, like you said, Resh, I think they did a good job, trying to, situate the movie around the airplanes. I felt like some of the shots were not bad. The color grading too kind of made sense. The part where the airplane was lifting off, I thought that was CGI because I was asking, like, did the plane actually take off? But again, it wasn't so obvious. So I think in terms of the cinematography and how they did that, not bad. I'll give them a 6 over 10 for that. Let's talk about special effects.
Were there many special effects in it?
Not too much.
There was much
the gunshots and all that stuff. And
the gunshots. And then I don't know what they were trying to achieve with the military smoke. When it got to I'm like, these guys, they just go bring this stage stuff. Come on. That one was just too obvious. I was like, they shouldn't have even done it. I've just gone. And then, also, did we talk about the action part? Where is the action part situated?
We'll get that into the last part.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, they didn't do well when it comes to that. So I don't know if I should give any mark. I'm going to leave it open. I'm not giving any mark.
It's trying to leave it open. Is it 0?
I'm leaving it open. I'm not giving any mark.
It will affect the overall score.
At the end
So
of
you
the
need to
day.
give
There's
it a
there's a
mark.
scoring at the end of this whole exercise. So you have to give a score. Either it's 0 or a 1 or a 5.
I'll give it 5.
All right. Laika?
Yeah. From what he said, I think the special effects was fairly manageable until that last scene. That last scene was just like, why did you do this? Like, that smoke bomb just took me off. I was like, nah. And then it was green. And then I was like, come on. Like, even if you wanted to use, like, typical smoke and then, like, some photographers use stuff like that, right? Like, you could have used it and it would look more natural than this. This looked really bad towards the end. So that in itself just... I can't remember what other special effects I saw in the movie, but I know that it wasn't weird until the last scene. So because of that, is it 2?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know who's in charge of that, but yeah, that wasn't a good look. Right? Even the gunshot sequence, the action, special effects wasn't good. 3 over 10. All right, finally, we look at overall acting, and this includes action, emotions, conversations, all overall. The actors, what do you think will you rate generally in this movie, overall acting?
Yeah, the overall acting, the guys tried. I think it's the executioners, the people executing the different action parts. Those are the people that are in question. For the action part, there are some guys that can actually do it perfectly well. And I think that's where collaboration needs to come into the picture with our Nigerian environments when it comes to maybe movies, maybe trying to collaborate and all. And we don't like to collaborate, and it's very bad. It is extremely bad. There is nothing wrong in collaborating and bringing people that have expertise in this particular field so that they can execute it very well. And then you guys can actually, credit yourselves and all. Yeah. You see a Hollywood movie. If we say they are mimicking Hollywood, mimic it very well now. Then bring people in to collaborate, people that are good at that executing action part and all. And then the soldiers, I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Why did you even put soldiers? You should have just left it. Yeah. You should have just left the soldiers part. You saw one soldier that was, the guy, one of those guys were walked behind him and the soldier was kind of like, I'm like, this is not a typical soldier. This is the way you're supposed to act, And then, what's it called? The poor man's version of Jackie Chan. That's ambassador. I'm like, what's going on, really? It's the poor man's version of Jackie Chan. Really. So for me, I wasn't really feeling it. And then the Owiwi guy.
Yeah.
The first, I think he was wearing the same costume, the same shirt. When the father slapped him, the first scene when the father slapped him and the guy was coming, I was like, why is it like, this should be like a year later or what? Is this the same? So I wasn't feeling it really. Okay. Overall, I wasn't feeling the acting part, the execution of those acting parts. I wasn't feeling it. But I know those guys are good, but it is what it is.
What's your score?
My score, I'm going to give it 6 as well.
Okay. Laika?
Oh, yeah, said a lot. For me, I would say that the overall acting, if you want to watch this movie, first of all, put logic to one side. And I know it's something you would usually do sometimes for some Hollywood films, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, you also have to put logic because when you mentioned that the Chinese person,
okay,
I know there was a plot around it. As I said, like, because they were trying so hard to join and put a lot of back stories to people that was very unnecessary. It now felt like they had just 1 hour to execute everything, right? Every type of story, every subplot, the main plot was just like they didn't put a lot of effort into that. And the actors tried, but I felt like there was a lot of amateur acting in play. So the fact that when they bring in a lot of OGs in the scene, you're like, oh, this person was in the movie. Why is this person taking the, shall I say, the back seat? Like, why isn't this person executing, acting necessarily? I know that sometimes in movies you would also want to bring in new blood, but when the old bloods, maybe certain people we know that are good actors, when they sit back and they let the new actors, I think you would actually still need to support them in a certain way. That support wasn't necessarily there. As I said, those characters weren't necessarily built properly. And in terms of the acting, I felt like the overall dynamics, it was like the director said, everyone has to jitter a lot. I know someone was just jittering so bad, and all of a sudden they flip and change it. And you're like, are you psychotic, or are you having an anxiety attack? Which is it exactly? So some characters were not necessarily acted to the best, I would say. I felt some scenes were over dramatized. There were a lot of highs and lows. It was quite confusing, and because of that, I would give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved the French dialogue. It was a nice touch, but I don't want to. I could easily pick certain scenes that I did not like, but as I said, it's spoiler free.
Yeah, spoiler free. Okay. For me, before I give my rating on that, I'd like to give shout out to all the OGs, like you said, that were on this movie. Sam Dede, legend, was there. Bob Manuel was there as well. We have some of our favorites, Sharon Oja, Nancy Sime, Jemima Osunde. But like you said, a lot of these OG guys, they took the back seats because they were more like side cast in the movie. The main protagonists of this movie were the 4 young men who were largely unknown, right? And I think they did their best, but there was still a lot more that they could have given, right, into their character and into, just bringing life into the personalities that those characters were meant to have. Owiwi, Skipper, honorable mentions, they did a good job. They can do more. For me, I'll give them probably a 5 over 10 for overall acting and action sequence. At some point, that brings us to the end of this review. The scores for this ranking will flash across the screen, and then you get your verdict over whether to watch this movie or whether you want to skip. But I'll just say that before we wrap up on this show, big shout out to the guys who thought about doing this movie in the first place, because I think that beyond just trying to hit our big screens and make some money, there was a message that I believe that the producers of these movies had, which is to shine some light into some of the things that our young people have done in the struggle to try to bring democracy and establish democracy into the Nigerian and political space. And this is, like I said, a true life story. So these men that we saw in this movie, they're actually real life people who were locked up in Niger prison after the whole incident and pretty much had half of their lives taken away from them.
But I like the fact that they took them from different parts of
the country.
Yeah. Most of them are actually Yoruba, but they took them from different parts of the country, which was good. Anyway.
Yeah. So that brings us to the end of our movie review for Hijack 93. I hope you enjoyed it. And no spoilers, spoiler free. And if you do go ahead to watch this movie, let us know your thoughts. Did you enjoy it? What are the parts that you like the most? What are the parts that got you rolling your eyes like SMH? Oh, let's get your thoughts. Guys, thank you for joining us on this special review, Resh and Analika. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.